my freshman year in high school, I had a 60 average, so I had a D, 60 average coming from public school. I got an opportunity to get a scholarship at LaSalle Academy, a really good private school, Catholic school in New York City. And I went from a 60 average my first semester, missing 13 games, failing, to finishing with a 95 average my last semester, to getting a letter from Princeton. And for me, when I played the game of basketball, I did everything. I scored, I played defense, I rebound, I get stops, I can post, I can shoot a little bit. That was one of my strengths, do it all. But that doesn't necessarily translate to business. Yeah, thanks for having me. And my host. No, this is great. This is a huge opportunity. I do just want to say, what a journey since I retired. It's 9 years ago I retired, and in 2009, I remember right before I got to LA, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in my career. Right when I got to LA, and I met with my friend, a couple friends at the Polo Lounge in the Beverly Hills Hotel. I remember the day. And I called my friend from New York, because I was asking him, I need some of your advice, because I don't know what year I'm about to retire, but I know it's coming soon. And the confidence of getting into business, it wasn't fully there, but I was involved in a lot of social impact. So from 2007, when I created my foundation, Excel University, which was made with intention of trying to become a university, I was pretty well versed in the philanthropic space and the social impact space. It was taking up a lot of my time, day in, day out, giving myself to any foundation. I didn't put a value on myself back in the days. So if somebody was to say, hey, Metta, can you show up, to this event? I would say yes, and I didn't really understand, the value, and then also the time. You're spending time with your family, you're spending time with your children. I'm just cutting in the time because I'm trying to give back so much. As I was trying to think about business, I remember it was always a roadblock, when I was trying to figure out what business I was going to get involved. The low-hanging fruit was get involved in something that you're passionate about, get involved in something that you're emotional about, and music was one of those things. Every athlete is trying to, get into music. Every athlete thinks they're a rapper. Every rapper thinks they're a basketball player. So I went through that whole phase. But what I realized was that was more touching into emotions, that things I've been through as a child, different artists that I could relate to. But it wasn't something that I was excited about in business. So I later just exited kind of that business model. And then as I started to explore different things, I remember in 2012, I spoke to one of my partners, one of my female partners, and I told her, I said, okay, we're doing a lot of philanthropy, but we're giving so much of our time, and inflation is hitting us, and we need to start generating some revenue. We're about to be retired pretty shortly, so at that time, I wasn't really confident in anything that I could, pursue and be successful at. And also I was in the middle of my career. We just won a championship 2010, and that was a fun times in Los Angeles. The following year we got swept by Dallas. And you would think that you're gonna make it back to the finals at some point. You'll get it back. We got Kobe, R.I.P. Kobe Bryant. We got a great team, and at some point we'll get it back. Well, that never really happened. It went from 2010 to it just tanked, right, for the remainder of my career as a Laker. But during that whole time, I was trying to figure out, what do I love? What's my passions? So I started to travel a little bit, go to the Bay Area a little bit, meet different people, meet different entrepreneurs. I started to identify mentors, and I started to learn about the different businesses that people was involved in. And I started to get really excited about it. So as I hear the stories of different chairmen, different CEOs, their journeys and the different companies that we know. And as I was listening like a sponge, I started to say, okay, I really want to get involved. I really want to pick something, that I can get involved in and it can make it a success story. But, at the time, I didn't really have a background in business. I didn't really have a background in execution. It was really foreign to me, even though my first major in college was architecture. But that was only because when I was fresh out of high school, I had to pass the SATs to go to college. I didn't necessarily care about passing the SATs, but I definitely didn't want to not play in college. So I was almost forced to do well in high school. So one of the things that got me past my SATs was math. I grew a love for math. I remember at the age of 13, when I was going through a transition, my family was just separated. Mom and dad got divorced. And I had this math teacher, when I would go to class in junior high school, no matter what problems we had, we would go there sometimes frustrated, you're having a bad day. He always kept math important. He wouldn't give in to our emotion. He wouldn't cater to the emotion. He would just say, I'm sorry that what you're going through, but you need to focus in class. If you don't do well, I'm gonna have to fail you. And that just created some accountability with me, and then it created something that I could hold on to. It created something that I could almost relate to, and that's the way I grew my love, for math. And sometimes I grew up in Queensbridge projects in Queens, New York City, one of the biggest federal housing project in America. Nice, Nas and Mobb Deep and those guys. I actually grew up in the sometimes right across from Havoc and Prodigy. We was 3A, they was 3C in the building. But I remember, to stay out of trouble, going to different stores, getting my math workbook, and just locking in, going outside, because I didn't want to be indoors the whole time, and just being outside in Queensbridge Projects on Roxanne Shantae's block, if you're familiar with her, and just doing math problems, just to stay focused, just to buy some time. And that's where I kind of grew a love for math. So my freshman year in high school, I had a 60 average, so I had a D, 60 average. Coming from public school, I got an opportunity to get a scholarship at LaSalle Academy, a really good private school, Catholic school in New York City. And I went from a 60 average my first semester, missing 13 games, failing, to finishing with a 95 average my last semester, to getting a letter from Princeton. Got a letter from Princeton. I almost was gonna go because I was super flattered when I saw this letter. I said, if I go here, that's gonna be a huge statement. And I actually thought about it. On top of that, you get 5 college visits. So I had Miami University, which was a great school for architecture, Notre Dame, great school for architecture. And then I also visited Providence, Rhode Island, because Shamgar Wells went to Providence. I also played with Shamgar in high school, God Shamgar. Miami of Ohio, because Ray Martin was from Queensbridge. He was on that team that stopped the 66 win streak with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, UCLA. He was on that team, but he's from our neighborhood. And then I also had a visit to St. John's in New York City. So St. John's, I visited St. John's because it's New York City, and if I didn't take that visit, I would have heard it throughout the city because I was kind of a legend at that time. So as I visited Miami, as I was on TV announcing what college I was going to go to in high school, I had the Miami hat right under my chair. I also had the St. John's hat. But I was going to pick up the Miami hat, but something told me I might go to St. John's. And literally live on TV, I said, I'm going to St. John's. And I did that for the city, but it wasn't, I really wanted to pursue architecture. So here you have it, we get drafted, we're in the NBA, and I wanted to launch my own shoe company. I remember having conversations with some of the people that represented me, and one of the things that they told me, to launch a shoe company, you're gonna need $90,000 for the mold of the shoe. And it was kind of discouraging because I was 16th pick, $999,000 contract, $1 from $1 million. I remember because I'm like, just put the dollar there, just make it $1 million, but $500,000 after tax, different things like that. And I'm like, well, that's gonna be expensive. And I remember being discouraged because I wanted to pursue, and I'm competitive, and I wanted to launch my own shoe, and I was building a name. So when I wasn't able to get the support, it kind of messed with my emotions a little bit, being a very unstable player, athlete at that point in my career. Got involved in music, like I said earlier, and I later said, okay, I gotta have patience. Years later, 10 years later, 12 years later, I said, you know what, I'm just gonna do what everybody else has done. 1% of the people that make it, yeah, maybe they didn't go to school. Maybe they went to college 1 year. Maybe Bill Gates went to college for 1 year, and I think Zuckerberg might have went for 2 years, and I think even Jay-Z went to Stuyvesant, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't go to college, and they're the exception. But 99%, right, of the successful people are going to a 4-year college, 2-year college, 4-year college, and they're putting in that work. I didn't necessarily want to leave it a chance. So I started to really dig in to the side that I was familiar with. A lot of people wasn't familiar or wasn't used to me being on that side, on the academic side, but I remember putting in that work, to go to St. John's. So in 2014, I started to learn the platforms like Alibaba, Shopify came out, I think that was 2012. I started to become really curious with the platforms where sports was affecting the outcome of success, because I wanted to learn how to market. I wanted to learn how to create sales and sales channels and all this stuff that was getting in the way of success. When you fast forward a little bit to retirement, and I'm gonna take another step back here a little bit. When you fast forward a little bit to retirement, I remember the day I retired, 2017, last game was against the Golden State Warriors. I didn't play much that game, which is annoying. I wish my coach was here, because how do I not play my last game? But I did have 18 in the second half, my last game at Staples Center. So that was a really great experience, 18 in the second half. I was more of a mentor at that point in time. But I got a chance to play, had a great plane ride home with the rookies from San Francisco to LA, 45-minute ride, and Nick Young was on that team, and D'Angelo Russell, and we had a great 45-minute ride. I started out sober and did not end sober on that ride, but well-deserved, 17-year career. I think I deserved that. And I remember waking up the next morning depressed. Like, what am I gonna do? I have no skills. I can only play basketball. I do want to coach. And I remember laying with my head to the right or left on my pillow and replaying all the great parts of my career, replaying all the bad parts in my career. Literally, I probably did it within 2 hours, and I just pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of depressed, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I knew I wanted to get into something and do it full-time, full force, 100%, and that's it. So keep in mind, even when I was in my career, I was also doing a lot of music. I have 300 songs, a lot of songs. But I would often do the song, if you're familiar with recording, I would go in and do the song, one verse, no retakes, and get out because I had to practice the next day. So pretty much just having a good time, right? So I wasn't putting the work in that I put in on defense. On defense, I'm doing my drills in the summertime, sliding, working out, cardio, working on my shot, like not leaving anything to chance. And I said, I need to find something where I'm not gonna leave anything to chance. So I said, okay, I got 1,000 things I wanna do. And I'll take you to one of these funny stories when I went to Sequoia to show them these 1,000 things I wanted to do with a pitch deck. I was really interested in meeting. But I have 1,000 things that I wanted to do. And I said, okay, I love music. I love investing, Series 7. So I said, I'm gonna study for my Series 7. I'm either gonna go full-time on music, make a perfect album, or I'm gonna coach. That's it. Go start as assistant, 100% coaching, or I'm gonna get into digital marketing. But I wanted to pick one thing. So I studied for my Series 7. That was difficult. 2 weeks, I said I'm out. With music, I didn't necessarily want to be away from my family again. 17-year career, even though I love it, I love performing, I just thought the lifestyle, the alcohol, the having to be out, I said, nah, I'm gonna X that. Coaching, same thing. I just got finished with a 17-year career. So coaching, I'm thinking if I got right involved, I got to miss out on family time. My daughter was, at that time, maybe 13, my youngest child. So I'm not going to get right into coaching. So I called up UCLA. I asked them, can I apply for some of the extension courses? And I did. Initially, when I did it online, I can't learn in front of a laptop. So I called them back up. I said, hey, can we just start over? Can I just go into the classroom, and do I have to pay the fee? Can I just use what I just paid? They said, yeah, you can come into the class. So I went into the classroom. I did extension courses in digital marketing, social media, coding, there at UCLA Mondays and Wednesdays, and then I also went to Concordia Irvine for business analytics. I wanted to learn how to market companies and then sell them. I had no concept of marketing companies and selling them. So I really wanted to dig deep and learn. I also did Google Analytics in Vancouver, a company called, not Stack It, that was a company in Toronto. I forget the name of this company. BrainStation is a company called BrainStation that teaches you different skills in technology, whatever you want to learn. So I did a couple of those classes. I also went to the Warren Buffett shareholders conference by myself. I bought some shares in the BRKA just to go to the conference. I went by myself. I was going to the Bay Area once a week. I told my wife one day, I said, I'm going to Wall Street. And she said, why? I said, I'm eating on Wall Street. I'm going to Equinox on Wall Street. I'm walking around Wall Street. I ain't leaving until I get a deal. Because at this point, I wasn't invested in anything. I was more at homes, but I wasn't really in the market. But I'm seeing all my peers, this deal, that deal, this deal. And I'm like, how are these people getting all these deals? This is incredible. So after me and my wife argued a little bit about this doesn't make any sense, it was my card, so I just purchased the ticket. And I went to Wall Street. And I was super motivated. I'm from New York. But keep in mind, I'm from New York, but the city is across the water. I'm from Queens, Long Island City, 59th Street Bridge. When you see the city, there's a disconnect. I don't think I have a relationship as a child. So I said, I was a little bit fearful, honestly, of going to Wall Street. Even though I went to St. John's, it's a staple in New York City. A lot of St. John's grads is working in these buildings, but I had a little bit of fear. So I just said, I'm just going to jump straight in. So I go to Wall Street, walking around, trying to see who's going to make eye contact with me to work with me. And some people say, that's a big guy. I'm not making contact with that guy. So I'm in Equinox. I go to Equinox one day, doing some abs, just seeing who's going to talk to me. And then this guy just starts, he sits right next to me on the mats, the ab mats. And I'm doing the abs okay, I hope this guy talks to me. He says, hey, Ron Artest, what you doing here? I said, no, I'm just working out. And I said, what are you doing? He said, yeah, I'm here. He says, I'm in finance. And then he just says, at this point, I got really tired of meeting middlemen. I got really tired of it because you never know who you meet. People sending you through the ringer. Everybody wanted to go out to a club. And I was done with that lifestyle. So I wanted to meet people direct. So he actually said, hey, would you want to meet my CEO? Absolutely, I would love to meet your CEO. It happened to be Roger Monteforte from the Forte Group, which used the national securities platform in the secondaries market. So I get to the office and we're talking, and then long story short on that point, that's how I got in Lyft. And going through that experience, it gave me confidence. I didn't have to do diligence. It was just investing alongside in the secondaries. But I was able to experience investing and return. That was my first company. Then I got involved in Buttercloth, this company here. Was able to get involved early. That company, we went on Shark Tank, got an investment. That was really cool. I had a little equity in the company. That company's still doing solid. I got another company called EasyCareLink.com, a SaaS platform that provides nurses to facilities. That company started to take off. I was sinking my teeth in a little bit. And at this point in time, I had about 3 companies, and I also had a CPA firm that I invested in because I knew I was going to start getting involved. and I didn't want to have to deal with all these taxes, so I got involved in a CPA accounting firm, which we signed. I invested in it, owned it, and our first client was Canelo Alvarez, actually. It was just like, I invested in this junior accounting CPA, and she signs Canelo in 3 weeks. Couldn't believe it. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna have patience. Let me pay attention to these companies and see like what this means. And this is a 4-year kind of just talking to the founders, not necessarily receiving any dividends at this time. It was just an equity contract, which my contracts are different now. Equity takes a little bit long to get, some returns. But so as I learned about the company and I found out how I can help these companies, I said, okay, I spoke to my wife. I said, okay, I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna double down on this strategy. So I started to go out more, meet more companies. I did get a couple companies where the founders, they didn't have the endurance to keep going, which is a bummer, because when you spend your time, with a founder or invest capital, you would hope that founder doesn't quit. That was kind of deflating. But I started to identify better founders, better opportunities. And then I got 40 companies now in the portfolio, but about 10 to 12 companies in, what I realized was I didn't have a thesis after talking to venture capital firms and talking to different private equity firms and different investors. And they're like, so what is your thesis? I'm like, well, I just need some investment so I could invest. So that was like my answer there. But then I go back home and I'm like, thesis, what? So I realized that I didn't have a thesis. And I'm like, okay, even though my model's a little bit different, and I'm not necessarily writing big checks at the time, and I was using more a sweat equity approach, I said I had to give myself a thesis. So I also didn't want to hire someone to create a thesis. That's going to be $150,000 a year with no financial model. And so I said, I got to figure out this thesis thing on my own. So I'm going into the arena, to a Laker game, mostly Laker games. That's the only games I've pretty much been to. So I'm looking at all the signs. I'm saying, okay, State Farm, Geico, Coke, Nike. I said, okay, will sports affect the outcome of success? That's my thesis. And that bought me time to find more like-minded individuals, more opportunities that align with me, that's not taking me that's not getting me distracted, taking me out of my realm, out of my orbit where I could, really go to work. And I started to identify better opportunities. During that same time, building out my business plan, and I later partnered with the former CEO of Boost Mobile, Steven Stokels, who's still partnering with me today. I started to attract better talent, and things really started to pick up. One of the other problems I was trying to solve was for-profit social impact. I'm not necessarily a money-driven guy. I'm more driven by something that's going to get me excited to just dive on the floor and go get the loose ball. I need excitement. And social impact is that for me. It's not necessarily the return, even though we're trying to create returns. So I was trying to figure out how could I get involved with social impact companies for profit. That took a long time to figure out. I couldn't find a rhythm. I couldn't find any opportunities. Some people wasn't necessarily interested in that model, but I was very interested in finding companies that I could add value to that had some type of, niche in social impact. And, years later, I found the rhythm. I'm working with a lot of different companies that's trying to actually solve problems. So, I'm giving myself a little bit of time to find the opportunities that I want to be a part of, that fits the values of what I'm trying to bring to society, what I'm trying to bring, to the future. Some things that happened to me along the way. I remember I went to Sequoia. First time I left LA to go try to receive an investment. And I met, y'all probably know a gentleman, Brian Schreier. He took the meeting. So I get there, and I have a binder, and everything in my binder was written in pencil and pen. So I have 1,000 ideas, movies, TV shows, sneakers, and I'm thinking I'm gonna take this binder and go ask for $10 million for an investment with no financial model. So I get into the meeting, and we meet, and before I get on the plane, a lady said, hey, Metta, I'm gonna go to FedEx because maybe you wanna put a slide that says Artest Management Group, so just let me, it was literally white paper that said Artest Management Group. I said, all right, thank you, let me slide this in. So I get to the meeting, we quick chat, maybe some sports we talk about a little bit. I said, okay, let me get into it. So I'm literally opening the book and reading line by line the different ideas that I have. And by the end of the meeting, they had a little smirk on their face. Typically, Metta, this is not how you would present to ask for millions of dollars. And I said, okay. And I was listening. I kind of knew I was doing something wrong. And so I listened, and it's like getting that information, that type of information. That was one of the first times where I took that information back and improved. Go get more information, take that back and improve. And now you got 8 years later, after retirement, I had to also make a decision, what space do I want to be in? What skill sets do I have? And for me, when I played the game of basketball, I did everything. I scored, I played defense, I rebound, I get stops, I can post, I can shoot a little bit. And I worked on that in the summertime. I did everything. I would do, cardio, weight training, abs, swimming, and that was one of my strengths, do it all. But that doesn't necessarily translate to business. That's not gonna translate to launching one company, doing one thing. And I said, since that's my makeup, and then also my mom, she was the type of lady, if we had one pot of rice on the table, and we had to share it. If one of our friends was hungry, they would come in. We now got to split that rice. And that's how my mom was. That's how my dad was. And yeah, that's maybe not a characteristic that can create generational wealth, but it's a great characteristic to have. So when I look at the strengths of sharing and giving back and working on and having a total gain, I said, I think that applies to an accelerator. I think my strengths are helping people. So maybe it's not launching, just one company, but I can create an umbrella. That would be my one thing, but I'm helping, multiple companies, multiple founders. I enjoy getting my hands dirty. And that's where, I tried to play to my strengths, and I'm actually thriving in that area. So, fast forward and now, it's been a great journey. Currently on the board at UCLA Psychiatric Ward, so still doing a lot of social impact, working with a lot of great talent. Initially, I remember all these opportunities. As an athlete, we get a lot of opportunities. So as an athlete, you'll get one opportunity to get into a beverage, an opportunity to invest, an opportunity to receive advisory shares. But one of the problems is, how are you going to handle all of the contracts, all of the deals? You only got 24 hours in a day. You got to give time to your family. And what I realized was I didn't have infrastructure. So what I had to do was, I spent a couple years on just building a strong platform. And I always had to use basketball analogies and things and my experiences that walk me through it, to get me through it, because I had no business background. I didn't go to a business school. I didn't even get involved in economics while I was in college. It was more basketball. And I had to use these analogies to get me over the hump. So one of the things I said is, since I was an architect major and I needed infrastructure, I said, it has to be a similar meaning with infrastructure in a business and infrastructure in architecture. So I just gambled that it has the same meaning, and if I really build the infrastructure to take on all these opportunities, I should be okay. So one of the analogies that I had was, you can't build the Empire State Building on a house infrastructure, which is essentially what we had. I said, you can build a house on the Empire State Building infrastructure and build on top of it, but not in reverse. So as I had all these opportunities and a lot of different companies, I was telling my companies, I got to build a platform so I can support y'all more, so y'all going to have to give me a little bit of time. And we did that. We created different channels, marketing agency channels, sales division. A lot of our athletes typically don't have a sales department. Athletes typically don't have a CRM. Athletes typically don't have a sponsorship strategy, or coming out of pocket for events and different things like that. So we launched, some of these verticals took longer, the PR vertical, the sales vertical. We actually built that vertical at the same, because PR and sales is based off relationships for the most part. So we built that at the same time. The marketing agency was more partnerships. We currently have a company called Just Light Media. I'm not sure if anybody uses Just Light Media, but it's an Olympic and Sartell, a really cool company, focused on digital marketing. And we built, the infrastructure to hold up the opportunities and also to serve our portfolio companies, not only our portfolio companies that we don't control, but also serve the companies that we control. So, right now, where we're at right now is partnerships, services, is something that really excites us in the areas of consumer, logistics. Why logistics? Athletes, merchandise, product. So one of the things that we created was like different entities, and our venture capital arm is a slightly different kind of thesis than our holdings company. Venture capital is more sports, media, entertainment, direct-to-consumer marketing tech, where our holdings company is more focused on logistics, consumer logistics, media, and we add value to the venture capital arm. We also, one of the things that we've kind of figured out, tried to find a common denominator kind of problem solving for our portfolio companies, and since our thesis is aligned and everything's aligned, what we realized was a lot of the founders are falling into the same problems, and even our own companies are falling into kind of the same problems. So we were able to create these different services, and now we're creating more documentation, a more systematic approach, where we now are just sending out documentation and getting the surveys back, and our founders are able to explain to us where they're strong at, where they need help at. And sometimes it'll take a little bit longer for us to respond to certain companies that's not fully prioritized, but it's been a hell of a journey. I've been doing a ton of keynotes. My first keynote that I did, it was when I sort of came out the room, so to speak, when I went back to UCLA to start. It was like a 6-year journey of just, head down. I was traveling a little bit, but I was like essentially in my room, head down, perfecting my craft. And my first meeting on a Zoom, I had, it was a venture capital arm, and they was like, wow, I didn't know you was involved in all these businesses, and that's when I got invited to FII. I was actually the last speaker at FII. I couldn't believe the room I was in. I was in a room with, unfortunately, I was in a room with Sam from FTX was there, CZ from Binance was there, Mr. Diamond, Robert Smith was there, and it was in Saudi Arabia. And I remember I walked into the room. This is one of my first real kind of opportunities. And a story also just came out in Bloomberg that I was raising $1 billion fund, which that story launched too early because I didn't have the fund documents. So that story launched way too early. But it created this incredible traction in terms of people that was like, what, Metta? You're doing this? And I remember getting in the room at a compound, the gentleman that was actually Mr. Magic that runs Live, or the chairman and CEO of Live Golf. And I called my wife, and I'm like, I just can't believe where I'm at. I don't even know why I'm here. Don't understand it. And I couldn't even get the words out because I knew I was manifesting launching an institution. We are planning to go IPO. We do have 3 companies that went public, 1 delisted, unfortunately. Should have pulled out earlier. But, by the way, Eat Virgin, great product that we have. It's in Sprouts. So happy to partner with LA and Natasha. But so that was my first kind of introduction into building my network. I didn't quite segment out my investors. I didn't quite yet segment out my relationships. Since then, the relationships and the way I'm able to add value to my portfolio companies now is just like a blessing. It's incredible. Trying to work with more companies that have a vision. Obviously, it's not the IPO market right now, maybe it's coming back, but more of a vision of IPO, of good cash flow, so working with more companies, in that realm. And it's been just a super, just incredible journey. Lots of keynote speaking, which is great. I'm able to do this, meet people, run events, and just, represent my company the right way, represent the projects the right way, build relationships for our account managers. We are launching a sports agency under the holdings. I'm currently the CEO of the holdings. I started out as the CEO of one of our sports media companies, but decided to just move up a little bit. We do have a couple of the companies that we started out. We identified some really great CEOs, so some of our companies that we control are now taking on a life of its own. You'll start to see us do more storytelling, a podcast. We're about to launch our first podcast. It was really difficult for me to do a podcast because everybody wanted me to talk about ratchet stuff. And I'm like, I don't necessarily want to talk about ratchet stuff. I want to talk about entrepreneurship. It's been a hell of a journey just navigating the podcast space because I don't want to report on gossip. Even though I watch gossip on YouTube. I do watch, but I don't necessarily want to talk about it. I want to talk about entrepreneurship. I want to learn about founders. I want to talk about social impact. And so we have a podcast that's about to launch using one of our entertainment music CRM companies called Amped. So I'm really excited to be partnering with one of our portfolio companies on the podcast. And there's a lot of other great things happening in the holdings. Obviously, the agency space, sports agency, sports management, that's the area where we come from. This is Los Angeles. And with the experience that we have here, we'll use our sports agency at some point, to add value to the portfolio companies. So it's been a great journey. I will like to open up if you have any questions for me. I also want to say thank you for giving me time to speak here. If you do have a question, can you just walk up to the stage? That would be great. Take your time, no rush.
Metta, first of all, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm a fellow New Yorker, and your inspiration, your work ethic, helped me get through a lot of hard times in the startup business. Because we go through bankruptcies, people losing their homes, it's brutal. And so you're a true inspiration. So I want to just say that, and thank you for playing for the New York Knicks as well. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I wanted to see how you're looking at partnering with other investors. Do you, being from Queens, the Brooklyn guys, Carmelo, Jay-Z, that would be super interesting to see how that comes out, or do you see them as rivals? I want to hear about that. And then being a 60-year-old guy now staying in shape, how has your program, evolved in terms of exercise, staying in shape? So 2 questions.
That's a great question. Well, both of our guts are twins, so when I did work out, I was disciplined, not a lot of sugar, cut out alcohol, yoga. That's in reverse now. I don't drink though, I don't like to drink alcohol. But yeah, definitely a movement. I just came off a hike at Paseo Miramar. If y'all been on that hike, that's a hard hike. LA, nobody hikes, but okay. You been on Paseo Miramar? Has anybody been on that hike? That's a really tough hike. I just came for it this morning. But I think like hiking, I'm not trying to get in super shape, so trying to hike every day, trying not to drink alcohol as much as possible, and just trying to stay as healthy as possible. To your partnership question, I didn't really understand partnership. There's so many levels to business, I didn't go to school for it. And I came from a place of scarcity, I came from a place of survival. So naturally, I'm not gonna partner with you, right? Because I'm trying to feed myself. Even when I made it to the NBA, that's just my makeup. If there's a piece of rice or a piece of chicken on that desk and it's there every day, I'm not gonna tell you how I got that chicken. I'm not gonna tell you I'm not gonna tell you that it's there at 3:45 every day, because I'm hungry. But maybe if I tell you, maybe you'll give me 2 pieces of chicken tomorrow. It's just like using these analogies and trying to make it all make sense. And then as I got more comfortable with partnerships and less fearful, I saw my business started to take off more. I saw more collaborations and more networking. So one of the things that interests me now, I've been through, it's a long journey. It's 8 years of just work. But I love the concept of commercializing technology, commercializing inventory, commercializing resources, opportunities. So looking at what people have. And since I've been having these conversations, I am working with different family offices on their product, which is really cool. Sometimes it's out of the thesis, but it's a huge opportunity to learn. So being of service to someone else, working in abundance, which is a concept that I did not have until I was going to Silicon Valley every week and learning the Silicon Valley way, which is a great lesson for me. And I also, when I first got into trying to be an entrepreneur and I wanted to help athletes, that was the main thing, helping athletes launch their business. And as I was presenting this opportunity, I wasn't buttoned up. I was scatterbrained. So the athletes, they saw that because I'm always out doing something different. So I said, I'm gonna wait until I'm buttoned up, to go back to the athletes. And ironically, I built my company for athletes, but all my companies are not athletes. It's all just like regular entrepreneurs, which is really cool. Now that we're going to start going after partnership with athletes this year, so I'm really excited about that. I'm ready to present my company and my staff to get their business, whether it's business management, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's helping them build their business, whether it's helping them build their family office, because now their wealth is 10x the wealth that we had in their first contract. Generational wealth in the first contract is insane. So, but I also still think the fundamentals that we lack is still there because we're all from the same neighborhood. So I want to see more athletes launch family offices. I want to see more athletes with maybe you have an offshore accounts, taking advantage legally of the opportunities. Bermuda's great opportunities. Puerto Rico is great opportunities. The public markets in the UAE is great opportunities. How can you just show these opportunities to the athletes? And that's something that I'm super interested in partnership. So hopefully I can get a few done. And a lot of people are not familiar with me talking like this, so it takes a little bit of time for me to, show them that I've been working for 9 years in the gym, so to speak.
That's awesome, man. I got 2 deals for you coming up, brother. I'd love to work with you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll try to be a little short-winded.
Thank you. My name is Brandon. I go by Time, teaching young minds every day. Last time we had a conversation was back in 2021, LA Blockchain Summit, I think in LA. He was doing pandas and yeah. I had a question in regards to, you said sustainability and so was that stuff like green energy? I just launched a project yesterday, Green Energy Azos Finance. It's a green energy, so that's one question. What do you look at in regards to something that's really a beginning stage in general, and just it's launched on testnet right now. It'll be launched on the mainnet in February next year or something like that. What do you look at in order for you to get involved in something like that? And then the other part of the question was. How was it to play with Kobe, man?
I'll answer the Kobe part last because that's the easy. I can remember that. In terms of social impact, I think that falls under sustainability. I'm not an expert in everything, but social impact. I try to create partnerships, and if the partnership makes sense for our ecosystem, and if I can make the right introductions within the ecosystem, then if it's a sustainable project, then it makes sense. Working on the board at UCLA, and there's a new hospital being built, the mental health emergency room. We're raising $200 million, so if anybody wants to invest, come talk to me. I'm on the board. But there's things that make sense. You know, when you're talking about sustainable opportunities, sustainability opportunities, green opportunities, obviously the values that I have align perfectly. You know, so for not everything we're involved in, because consumer, logistics, sports, media, we're trying to stick to that. But if we can make introductions or even create opportunity, and if it makes sense, then we'll pursue it as a company. Not necessarily me. I'm in an orbit that I'm trying to stay in events and business development. But a great example is we know a few people with government contracts and satellite, and a few people with patents, satellite patents, and we made an introduction on trying to not only create AI opportunities and remove people from their jobs, you know, but create opportunities where the AI actually works for the people we shouldn't be working for, the AI. So there's a really complex project that we're working on. So that's an example on how my firm would get involved. And artestmanagementgroup.com, if y'all want to go and input your company, artestmanagementgroup.com. But yeah, thanks for that question. And okay.
I've been working with mental health for a while, mental health patients. I was questioning, you know, I got things going on in Art Basel. Last year I did suicide prevention, working with the kids out there in Miami. I do beach cleanup and stuff like that. Do you ever do like sponsorships, I guess? Or
sometimes, but I work in this mental health space. I think I've done so much work in mental health. It got a little overwhelming, but I'm definitely in a space where we are doing an event in Art Basel based off art and mental health. So if you're there, look at my website, sign up, maybe see you there. We're in a space as a firm. I'm not necessarily in a space daily like I used to be. And then in terms of Kobe, I love Kobe. He's awesome. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hi, good. Hi, I'm Susie Placencia. I'm an entrepreneur. I work in the cannabis industry. I actually have a house of brands focused on representing the Latino community and really targeting this niche demographic that has so much dispensable income. But, you know, so as a woman of color, as I'm sure you know as well, such a small percentage of investment goes towards women of color. My question to you is, what do you think the investment industry needs to do to really focus on, you know, supporting women of color? And then also, what are you doing with your companies to kind of support women of color in this space?
Absolutely, great question. So my first partner was female. She's still a partner, feminist also, and we took on that culture. And we used to only work with females. I have 2 daughters, so we used to only work with females, but then my new wife said, "Why are you only working with females?" I said, "Okay, I will work with males." In terms of the balance or the unbalance of where investments are going, I mean, we're all for it. Obviously, we see a lot of more and more successful females. I don't look at it as getting in the way of our opportunities. I'm more happy for it. It's something. I coach girls basketball for 9 years. I'm at Cal State LA, been there for 6 years, coaching Division II girls. So come to a game. Please support us. But so, you know, I think one of the issues is just a lot of unbalance. You know, I think we got more involvement. I'm not big on taking care of one group, even if it's my group, and then another group is not getting the benefits of equity of investments. So I think the challenge is going to be for everybody here as investors is you want to pay attention to the types of people that's, you know, in your portfolio, but just creating balanced opportunities. And when you look at some of the underlying problems with men and women, especially in the entertainment industry as a child when you grow up, and if you're into music or music videos, you're not focused on the mind of a woman, right? And that's a huge problem. Here we are with men that are trying to get on their feet, but when they see a woman, they're not thinking in the right way. Well, you probably missed out on partnering with a CEO. She could have been a CEO. You don't know. Just because she's dressed a certain way, you could have had a great conversation, and she could have took you up and said, you know, I want to work with you, and this is one of the issues, you know, that we have. So it's not just the investment part, like, okay, you have money, why are you not investing in women? It's other issues. You know, it's the mindset. It's not just the front-facing issue. So it's like, I think we got to do a better job on the origin of the problems, you know, so we can create more balance, if that makes sense. And I do have a lot of female founders in our company, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take 2 more questions. And, yeah, or one more. Maybe just come up now. Great AI. It's Kobe and Metta in one face.
I'll keep it short, I promise. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm actually out here from New York, over a decade in New York. I was born in Ghana, but New York gave birth to me. So I love Queens, I love Brooklyn. And my background is media and entertainment and fintech. Run an innovation lab for distribution rights management technologies for music, film, fashion, and sports. And starting from last year, after the UN conference, we had a big pipeline of deals from different founders all over the world. So naturally started talking to family offices because the VC ecosystem wasn't just too conducive. So what would you advise when you have maybe 3rd-generation family offices that are more old school, and 1st-generation family offices that are either their children or 1st-generation founders who just exited, bridging that gap between the old school, where it's more traditional business, infrastructure, traditional cash flow businesses, and the new school, where it's more cloud computing and AI and blockchain. Our goal is to do some sort of family office next generation events where there can be a transfer of knowledge from older to new generations. And speaking from, I don't like to use the word underserved, but like diverse founders, how best should you navigate that space? That way you're able to make the old generation happy, at the same time have a forward-thinking approach and provide more opportunities for underserved youth.
Yeah, so I think, you know, the 3rd-generation family office, obviously everybody's always going to them for money, invest, but I think I just want to encourage, you know, those type of family offices to outreach to more like-minded individuals. Maybe that individual is not ready, but at some point they will get ready. You have to go through training camp, you know, to get ready for the season. So I think more events. It's hard to, I got to imagine it's hard to, where people are probably always asking for stuff. I also want to encourage, you know, the founders and sponsors to be of service. You know, don't just pitch your idea, like, how could I help you? And then be receptive, like, you know, I might have something for you to do. It has to be a 2-way street, you know, 1st generation or the 1st generation probably have it a little worse because they don't have the experience. So I think if you're a founder, go in there, be of service, and I think that will probably serve you better. Thank you, absolutely. Usually our last 2 questions, and I'll say thank you.
All right, so Metta, first of all, seeing you today, I didn't know you were going to be here, but you know me, and everyone here doesn't know me, but you know I do cannabis vending machines, right? So we're Green Stop, and one of my questions for you is really more on the mental health question, mental health lane. Have you considered doing any collaborations with cannabis and mental health? One, that's the first question, getting that mental health question, that mental health message through, I don't know, anxiety reduction, other things, whatever, that could help with mental health. And then what are your thoughts on mental, because I know you talk about mental health with athletes a lot, which I think is beautiful, that, you know, you're a living testimony of that in other places, but what about mental health and entrepreneurship? Do you feel like that's talked about enough, like entrepreneurs dealing with mental health in that space as well?
Yeah, definitely. Good to see you. Great product, and you're a hustler, and you never gave up, and your product is incredible. I should have invested earlier. But yeah, I think the cannabis space is interesting because when it first came out, it was opportunities all over, and sometimes people, from a narrative perspective, thought I wanted to just like launch a cannabis brand and smoke marijuana. And although I'm for it, and a lot of our friends have been arrested for it, and I don't think it's fair and different things like that, but I just personally don't want to market, you know, the concept of like smoking. But the concept of mental health, or the concept of the actual cannabinoid and the impact that it has on someone, and I think it's better than alcohol, quite honestly, and the equity that we need in the space, because now it's becoming more legal, maybe federal at one point. It depends how it's presented, you know, to me. I'm not really in it to make a buck. I'm more in for the impact, but it just depends how it's presented. But now the NBA has taken it on, which is great, because when you look at a guy like Larry Sanders, who when he was 27 signed a $44 million contract, and he needed to smoke marijuana, you know, and he really needed it. And he gave back $27 million of that $44 million contract, leading into his $100 million contract, because he really had anxiety. This is a real, you know, so it was, that goes to show you that I think a lot of the athletes that was going through depression during their career and after, where cannabis could have really helped them, I think. You know, the abuse of it is something, but I think it depends on how the opportunity is presented. You know, if I was to get involved in that. All right, thanks for that question. Okay.
The last question was just about entrepreneurship, mental health and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think it's important. You know, what good is it exiting a company for $100 million if you're stressed? And we've seen entrepreneurs like commit suicide. We've seen entrepreneurs go into depression and, you know, abusing drugs. You know, that's the issue. So I think like just being that support system, definitely to learn more about what we're doing in this space, follow UCLA Psychiatric Ward, follow our page, you'll see things popping up. That was something that we've been talking about. We're about we broke ground on the mental health emergency hospital, and we're continuing to try to make that better. But it's a space that we really talked about. Thanks. All right, absolutely. Last question. Sorry, Natasha.
Metta, good to meet you. Last question, yes, the right goes to me. So this is a question from my 15-year-old son. He really wanted to be here, and he's like, hey, ask Metta why his title is called Test Your Greatness. He loved it because he said that implies that we are all already great. And so he wants to know, what is your definition of greatness, number one? There's probably the athletic version. And now as you have your second season of life here in your chapter, what does it mean to be successful and have greatness in the business world or social impact?
Thanks, great question. Well, when we thought of Test Your Greatness, one, I was trying to create a brand. My last name used to be Artest, so Tess made sense. And we love art. We're getting into art. Also doing different things, art tests, and but Test Your Greatness, because so many times people might doubt you, or you might doubt yourself, or someone might not invest in you, or somebody might not partner with you, or the doubts start kicking in, and you're testing your fear. You know, you're not taking a shot. You're not taking advantage of the opportunity. And we just want to encourage people, not only our founders or our consumers or clients, but also our staff. Test your greatness. Like, see how great you can be. You know, so many people put a narrative and a label, and that label probably is a similarity with failure, because if you really apply that label that someone put on you, that means you're not going to be successful at what you're trying to do. So when they ask me what I think the title should be, it's something that we have on our website, actually, Test Your Greatness. But we just want to encourage people. If we never meet you, we never shook hands, you know, go be great. You know, see the limits that you can push. You know, if you are at $1 billion net worth, go push it to 3. If you're at a $0 net worth, push it to 1,000. You know, if you are have issues partnering and collaborating with others, and if there's roadblocks, you know, go to therapy. You know, empower yourself. you know, and test yourself, see how great you can really be, you know, and then if you fail, well, that's okay.
What's your definition for
Me? Huh?
greatness? What does greatness mean?
Oh, greatness to me means just being collaborative and just sending out good energy to the world. Like that's, you know, that's it's not necessarily success driven or ROI driven. It's more, did I make an impact on somebody today? Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. How you doing? What's going on? Okay. So thank you for having me. This concludes us. All right, I just want to say thank you for having me.
Hello, yes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Give him one more big round of applause, stand ovation, and all that good stuff.
Thank you.